$2,500 for electricity? This is insane, Brian. We've been cutting back on everything to save money. Something's definitely wrong, I said, waving the bill in front of Brian's face, my voice trembling with frustration. He sighed, looking up from his phone just long enough to roll his eyes. You probably left the oven on. I told you not to bake every day. I clenched my fists. No, I make sure everything's turned off. There's something bigger going on here. I glanced out the kitchen window toward the old tool shed. It had been years since anyone had used it for anything but storage. Brian stood up, lazily stretching his arms. You're overreacting, Liv. It's just a bill. Just a bill? I snapped. We're wasting money we don't have, Brian. We need to figure this out. He shrugged and walked toward the living room, where the TV was blasting some reality show I never liked. I'll look into it tomorrow. Anger boiled inside me as I glared at him. Tomorrow? This can't wait. We need to check now. Brian flopped onto the couch, flipping channels without a care. Fine. I'll look at the breaker box later tonight, okay? Later. It was always later with him. I stormed out the back door and towards the tool shed, flashlight in hand. The chilly Ohio evening did nothing to cool my temper. Once at the shed, I jiggled the rusty lock open and scanned the interior. Cobwebs hung from the rafters, untouched tools littered the workbench, and the faint hum of electricity caught my ear. I followed the sound, shining the flashlight into dark corners until I found a run of wires leading from the exterior wall. My heart pounded as I traced the wiring back outside. I needed answers, not more questions. By the time I got back inside, Brian was asleep on the couch, typical. I grabbed my coat and headed out to the breaker box next to the house. The wiring setup looked standard at first glance, but something was off. Closer inspection revealed a secondary line trailing from it, leading underground towards the tool shed. Brian, I hollered, but he didn't stir. Typical again. Frustrated, I stomped back inside and grabbed him by the arm. Come with me, now. What's your problem, Liv? He mumbled, rubbing his eyes. I dragged him outside, pointing at the wiring. Explain this. He stared at it, silent. I don't know. Maybe it's been like that forever. No, Brian, this isn't normal. I want to know what's going on in that tool shed. We trudged back to the shed in silence, the moonlight our only guide. With the flashlight scanning every nook, I felt like a detective on a crime scene. When we reached the shed, I flicked the lights on, and Brian looked genuinely bewildered. Come on, Liv, let's go back inside. We'll call an electrician tomorrow. Brian, stop delaying. We need to figure this out. I insisted, reaching for the plug that connected the tool shed to the main house. As I yanked it out, a sudden uproar of voices spilled into the quiet night. It wasn't just the hum of electricity, it was the TV inside the tool shed. We both froze. Brian's jaw tightened, and I could see panic flickering in his eyes. You've been watching TV in here? While we can't even afford our bills? I was beyond furious. But before Brian could answer, the shed door burst open, and there stood Paula, Brian's mother, her eyes wide with surprise. She marched past us, muttering something about her favorite show. Mom, what are you doing here? Brian asked, bewilderedly. Paula glanced back in a hurry to return to her program. Just catching up on my soaps. What's it to you? As she disappeared back into the shed, Brian avoided my gaze, shuffling his feet in the dirt. Brian, this bill isn't from some oven I left on. It's from your mother hiding out in the shed and watching TV every night. This isn't just carelessness. It's deceit, I said, shaking with anger. For the first time, Brian looked genuinely cornered, and in that moment I knew this was only the beginning. The next morning, the tension in the house was thick enough to cut with a knife. I found Brian in the kitchen, sipping his coffee and staring out the window. His silence was almost worse than the arguments. Brian, we need to talk about this, I said, my voice firm. He looked at me, his eyes tired and distant. What more is there to say, Liv? Mom's been watching TV in the shed. Big deal. I slammed my hand on the counter. It's a huge deal! We're struggling with bills because of this. You knew and didn't say anything. He sighed heavily. I didn't think it was such a problem. She's lonely since Dad passed. I shook my head in disbelief. Lonely or not, this isn't right. We need to discuss how to handle this situation. At that moment, Paula waltzed into the kitchen, her usual brisk self. Good morning, you two. Lovely weather today, isn't it? She said, completely ignoring the tension. I took a deep breath. Paula, we need to talk about the tool shed. Her eyes narrowed slightly. What's there to talk about? I looked at Brian, but he avoided my gaze. The electricity bill is through the roof because you're living in the shed, Paula. We can't afford this. She stiffened, her jaw set. Living in the shed? I'm simply enjoying some peace and quiet. Besides, I have nowhere else to go. Brian cleared his throat. Mom, we were thinking maybe you should move closer. There are a few places nearby we could look at. Paula's eyes widened. What? I can't just up and move. This is my home, too. No, Paula, it's our home. Brian and I took it over after my parents passed. You moving in without asking is affecting us, I said, trying to stay calm. Brian shifted uncomfortably. We need to find a solution, Mom, something that works for all of us. Paula crossed her arms, defiant. Do you expect me to just pack up and leave? Where do you want me to go? A long silence followed. Finally, I spoke. There's a small property down the road. It's close enough so we can help if needed, but gives everyone their space. Paula scoffed. And how am I supposed to afford that? I glanced at Brian, feeling the weight of the situation. We can help you sell your current place, use that money to buy something new nearby. Brian finally looked at his mother. It's the best solution, Mom. You'll have your own place, and Olivia and I can sort out our finances. The room fell silent again. Paula's face flushed with anger, but she didn't argue further. She turned abruptly and left the room, muttering under her breath. Brian and I stood there, the silence heavy between us. This isn't over, Brian. We need proper boundaries here, I said quietly. He nodded, looking deflated. I know, Liv. Let's take it one step at a time. I watched as he walked away, feeling a mixture of relief and dread. This was just the beginning of untangling the mess our lives had become. But for now, it was a step towards reclaiming some control. The days dragged on, and the tension in the house didn't get any better. Brian's work hours grew more erratic, and his late-night absences left me both suspicious and worried. One evening, I found myself pacing the living room, glancing at the clock. It was past midnight when I heard the sound of the bathroom door opening, a sound I'd grown used to but couldn't ignore. I walked up to the bathroom door, noticing the bathroom lights still on and toilet paper running low again. Something wasn't adding up. Curiosity getting the better of me, I stayed by the door, listening. There were strange mutterings inside, almost as if two voices were speaking. I knocked lightly. Brian? No answer came. I opened the door a crack, peeking in, but found nothing unusual. The room was empty. Confusion crept in, making me more determined to figure out what was happening under our roof. The following day, I spoke to Brian about his odd work hours. He was sliding on his jacket, ready to leave. Brian, why are you coming home so late these days? You never used to work these hours. He shrugged, not meeting my eyes. Just lots of projects at work, Liv. You know how it is. You don't even tell me when you're coming back. It's not just about work, is it? I pressed. His face hardened. You're being paranoid, Liv. I've got enough on my plate without you grilling me. Anger and hurt flashed through me. Paranoid? Do you think I haven't noticed the extra toilet paper being used? Someone is here when you're not, Brian. He turned away sharply. You're imagining things. Let's just drop it, okay? Later that night, I waited again, catching the same mysterious use of the bathroom. Determined to get to the bottom of it, I stayed up, pretending to sleep. At 2 a.m. I heard it, the distant, muffled sounds of conversation. Slowly, I crept out of bed and followed the noise towards the tool shed. Outside, a small glow of light peeked through the shed window. I approached quietly, peering in. There was Brian, not working, but lounging with his mother, Paula, Smiths, both engrossed in a late-night TV show. My heart sank as the pieces started to fit together. The next morning, I confronted Paula as she was making breakfast. Paula, we need to talk about what's going on in the tool shed at night. She looked at me, feigning innocence. What do you mean, dear? You and Brian. You spend late nights in there watching TV while he's supposed to be working. Our bills are soaring because of it, I said, my voice shaking with anger. Paula's eyes flashed with defiance. So what if we watch TV together? Brian needs a break from you constantly nagging him. Taken aback, I narrowed my eyes. This isn't just about TV, Paula. It's about you two lying and sneaking around. She smirked, leaning closer. Maybe if you weren't so uptight, Olivia, Brian wouldn't need an escape. I stood my ground, feeling the fire ignite within me. This stops now. No more using the tool shed. No more secrets. We can't keep doing this. Paula's expression changed, turning cold. "We'll see about that," she said quietly, but it was enough to know this fight was far from over. The reality of Brian's betrayal and Paula's influence bore down on me. I wasn't paranoid. I was in the middle of a deceitful game, and now I was determined to take control. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table with the dreaded electricity bill in front of me. My hands shook as I dialed the number for the power company. After a few minutes of back and forth, I managed to schedule an inspection for the following day. When the inspector arrived, he was a middle-aged man with a kind face. "Ma'am, I'm here to check on the high electricity usage you've reported," he said, tipping his hat. "Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. I have no idea what's causing this," I replied, showing him the way to the tool shed. The inspector took out his tools and began examining the outside wall. After a few minutes, he frowned. "There's definitely something odd here. This wiring looks like it's been tampered with." My heart pounded. "What do you mean?" He pointed to a section of the wall where wires ran towards the tool shed. "These wires aren't standard. It looks like something's drawing a lot of power from your main supply." I watched as he continued his inspection, shining a flashlight into the dimly lit interior of the shed. "There's definitely some unusual activity here," he confirmed. I felt a surge of anger and frustration. "Can you help me disconnect it?" "Of course, ma'am, I'll get this taken care of right away," he responded, rolling up his sleeves. Within an hour, the unauthorized wiring was removed, and the shed fell silent, finally disconnected from our power. I thanked the inspector, who reassured me that the situation would be rectified in our next bill cycle. That evening, Brian came home looking annoyed. "Why's the shed dark, Liv?" he asked, tossing his keys on the counter. I crossed my arms, staring him down. "Because I had the power disconnected. The inspector found suspicious wiring." His eyes flashed with anger. "You did what? You had no right." "No right? We're drowning in bills, Brian. That shed was draining our finances." I shot back. Before he could respond, Paula appeared in the doorway, her face a thundercloud. "What's this about the shed losing power? My TV's not working." I took a deep breath, preparing for the storm. "The inspector found unauthorized wiring. We can't afford this, Paula. It stops now." Paula's face turned red with fury. "You think you can control everything, don't you, Olivia? This is my son's home, too. You can't just decide these things." "It's not about control, Paula. It's about our family's well-being. If you won't respect that, I'll take steps to make sure it's enforced," I replied, my voice unwavering. Brian stepped in, raising his hands. "Everyone just calm down, all right? We'll figure this out." But Paula wasn't having it. She turned to Brian, eyes blazing. "Your wife is ruining everything, Brian. You need to put your foot down." "Mom, I've already told you we need to reduce our expenses," Brian said, but his voice lacked conviction. "You're just as much a part of this household," she hissed at me, ignoring her son's half-hearted protest. "I am, Paula, which is why this can't continue," I responded, my patience wearing thin. Paula scowled. "This isn't over, Olivia. Not by a long shot." As she stormed out of the room, I felt a mix of relief and dread. I had won this battle, but the war was far from over. And now, deep down, I knew the next steps would be the hardest. The following days were cold and silent. Brian avoided me more than usual, and Paula hardly left her room. In the evening, I decided enough was enough. I marched into the living room where Brian was mindlessly flipping channels. "Brian, we need to talk. Now," I said, standing in front of the TV. He sighed and turned off the TV. "All right, what is it?" "We can't keep living like this under a cloud of deceit and stress. We need to address the tool shed situation once and for all." "Come with me," I demanded, leading him outside. As we stepped into the chilly night, Brian followed reluctantly. I led him to the tool shed and opened the door. "Look at this, Brian. Look at what you've turned our home into." Brian stood at the entrance, his face shadowed. "I don't see the big deal, Liv. It's just a shed." "Just a shed? This just a shed has cost us thousands of dollars and driven a wedge between us," I barked, barely containing my frustration. Suddenly, I heard the sound of footsteps rushing toward us. Paula, her face twisted in anger, appeared in the doorway. "What are you two doing here?" Without waiting for Brian to answer, I turned to her. "Paula, we've had enough of this secrecy. I know you're using the shed every night. You need to explain yourself." Paula's eyes blazed. "You think you're so righteous, Olivia. You don't know the half of it." Brian stepped back, looking trapped between us. Mom, just tell her the truth. Paula sneered. Fine. I've been staying in the shed because Brian promised me I could. He knew how much I missed my own space after your father's death, Olivia. I turned to Brian, my voice ice cold. Is this true, Brian? You knew about this from the start? He hesitated before nodding. I didn't think it'd become such an issue. I felt a surge of betrayal. We've been drowning in bills while you two play house out here. This isn't just about space, Paula. It's about respect, decency, and honesty. Paula took a step closer, her voice low and menacing. Don't preach to me about honesty, Olivia. You've always tried to control everything, making Brian's life a living hell. I'm the one who keeps him sane. My anger flared. Sane? Lies and deceit are what you consider sanity? Without warning, Paula grabbed the unplugged power cord and shoved it toward me. You want honesty? How about you admit you've been driving a wedge between my son and me ever since we moved in? Brian finally spoke, his voice broken. Mom, that's enough. Olivia's right. We need to stop this. What's been happening isn't fair to anyone. Paula looked horrified, as if she couldn't believe her son was siding against her. How dare you, Brian? After everything I've sacrificed for you? Without even looking back, I turned and walked out of the shed. Their voices faded as my feet hit the gravel pathway back to the house. I stormed inside and collapsed on the couch, trembling with the weight of everything. Minutes later, Brian entered, his face pale. Liv, I'm sorry. I looked up at him, my eyes cold. Sorry isn't enough, Brian. This has gone on too long. I need you to make a choice. Either we fix this mess together, or I fix it alone. He swallowed hard, the decision heavy in the air. We'll fix it together, he finally said, but trust wouldn't be easily rebuilt. That night, while the house finally fell silent, I knew this was more than just a strained marriage. It was a battle for control, honesty, and survival, and I wasn't done fighting yet. The house was eerily quiet the next morning. Paula had retreated to her room, and Brian sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at his coffee. I knew it was time to take matters into my own hands. I started searching the house, room by room, for any equipment or clues that hinted at further deceit. It wasn't long before I found a small, hidden camera tucked behind a picture frame in the living room. My heart raced. This wasn't just about the toolshed. This was about control and surveillance. I marched into the kitchen, holding the camera. Brian, what is this? He looked up, his eyes widening with shock. Liv, I swear, I didn't know about that. I slammed the camera on the table. More lies, Brian? How much of our life has been recorded? Paula stormed in, her face flushed with anger. I did that. I needed to keep an eye on things while you were busy being judgmental and controlling. I turned to her, fury in every word. Surveillance in my own home? How dare you? Paula squared her shoulders unfazed. I did what I had to do to protect my son. I took a step closer, my voice low but sharp. Protect him or control him? You've overstepped your bounds, Paula. This is unacceptable. Brian stood up, trying to mediate. Mom, this has gone too far. Olivia's right. You can't spy on us. Paula looked at Brian, betrayal in her eyes. After everything, you're turning against me? Brian's voice wavered. Mom, stop. This isn't helping anyone. We need to stop the lies and deception. It's tearing everything apart. Paula's eyes narrowed. You think you're better off without me? Do you really believe this woman cares about you? I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Brian is my husband, Paula. I care about him more than you know. But this isn't about care anymore. It's about trust, which you've destroyed. The room was thick with tension. Brian took a shaky breath. Mom, you should go. We need some space to fix things. Paula's face turned crimson. You're choosing her over me? After everything I've done for you? Brian's voice steadied. I'm choosing to save my marriage, Mom. You need to leave. Paula's eyes blazed with hatred as she looked at me. This isn't over, Olivia. You will regret this. As she stormed out of the house, Brian collapsed into a chair, his hands trembling. Liv, I'm so sorry. I never wanted it to come to this. I sat across from him, feeling a mixture of relief and sorrow. Brian, we need to rebuild our trust. I can't keep living like this, doubting everything. He nodded, looking defeated. I know. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. That night, I combed through the house, removing every bit of surveillance equipment I could find. Each hidden camera and microphone felt like another betrayal peeled away. Though the storm had cleared some of the air, the damage was deep. Brian and I sat in the living room later, the silence now heavy with the weight of the truth. "Thank you for standing up to her, Brian," I said quietly. He looked at me, eyes filled with remorse. "I should have done it sooner, Liv. I'm sorry for everything." The days ahead would be hard, filled with the struggle to rebuild what had been broken. But for now, the house was ours again, without the shadow of deceit looming over us. We had a long way to go, but the first step had been taken. Together, we would face whatever came next. A week later, Paula stood on our porch, eyes red from crying. It was strange seeing her so vulnerable. "May I come in?" she asked, her voice shaky. I hesitated but nodded. "Fine, but this has to be a constructive conversation, Paula." We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where countless arguments had erupted. Brian joined us, his face tense. Paula took a deep breath. "I've been thinking a lot, and I realized that I overstepped. I didn't mean to cause all this pain. I just didn't want to feel alone." Brian reached out, touching his mother's hand. "Mom, we understand that, but spying on us and sneaking around wasn't the way to handle it." Paula's eyes filled with tears. "I know. I'm sorry, Olivia. I shouldn't have tried to come between you two. Can you forgive me?" I took a moment, letting the weight of her words sink in. "Paula, it's going to take time. Trust isn't something you rebuild overnight. But if you really mean it, we can try." She nodded, wiping her tears. "I mean it. I want things to be better. I want to be part of your lives, in a healthy way." I stood up, feeling the need to take control of the situation. "All right, let's start fresh, but there are conditions. First, no more staying in the tool shed." Paula quickly nodded. "Agreed. And secondly," I continued, "if you need somewhere to stay until you sell your place and find something nearby, you can stay with us. But we need clear boundaries." Brian looked relieved. "That sounds fair, Mom. We need to set things right." Paula smiled faintly, grappling with the emotions that had built up over months. "Thank you, both of you." Days turned into weeks, and the house felt more like a home. Paula was staying in the guest room temporarily, and our communication had improved, but the scars of betrayal were still healing. One evening, as we were having dinner, Paula spoke up. "I found a small place not too far from here. It's perfect for me. I'll be moving in next week." Brian and I looked at each other, a weight lifting from our shoulders. "That's great news, Mom," Brian said, his voice filled with genuine relief. Paula nodded, looking more at peace than I had ever seen her. "I hope this helps us move forward. I want to be a positive part of your lives." Later that night, Brian and I sat on the porch, watching the stars. "Liv, thank you for giving her another chance," he said quietly. I leaned against him. "It's not just about her, Brian. It's about us, too. We need to be strong together." He hugged me tightly. "We will be. From now on, things will be different." The process of healing wasn't easy. There were still moments of distrust and lingering resentments, but we were making progress. We talked more openly, shared our worries, and sought to understand each other's perspectives. As the weeks went by, Paula's new place became a sanctuary for her, and our home slowly regained its sense of safety and love. The drama that had overshadowed us so long began to fade, replaced by a newfound respect and understanding. Paula was still part of our lives, but with boundaries that respected everyone's space and needs. The house was filled with laughter and joy again, and we finally felt like a family on the mend, ready to face whatever came our way. In the end, we realized that forgiveness and trust weren't just handouts. They were earned through consistent actions and genuine intentions. And we were all committed to making things right, slowly but surely. Paula's moving day arrived quicker than expected. I watched from the porch as the movers packed the last of her belongings into the truck. It was a strange mix of relief and trepidation. Paula walked over, looking both hopeful and nervous. "Thank you for everything, Olivia. I mean it." I nodded. "It's a fresh start for all of us, Paula. Let's make the most of it." She hugged Brian tightly and then turned to me, offering a tentative embrace. I accepted it, feeling the tentative warmth. As the truck pulled away, I turned to Brian. "We need to change the locks and secure the house properly." He sighed but nodded in agreement. "You're right. We need to make sure this never happens again." That weekend, I called a locksmith and replaced all the locks, then moved Brian's belongings into a rental storage unit. He stood by, watching as I packed his things. "Liv, do we really need to do this?" he asked. pain in his eyes. I paused, looking at him. Brian, we need to separate for a while. We've both been through so much, we need time to heal. He swallowed hard, finally nodding. I understand. Whatever it takes to make things right. The next day, I handed him the keys to the storage unit. You can stay there until you find a place. We'll talk about the rest later. Brian moved his things without protest, leaving the house feeling both empty and free. The separation was hard, but necessary. I needed space to think, to breathe, to figure out what came next. I changed the house's interior, making it my own again. Fresh paint, new furniture arrangements, and the removal of all surveillance equipment helped reclaim my space. It felt like an act of defiance and liberation. A week later, I filed for divorce, demanding alimony. When I handed Brian the papers, he looked broken, yet resigned. I didn't want it to come to this, Liv, he whispered. Neither did I replied, my voice steady, but we need to move forward separately. The court proceedings went smoothly, and soon enough, Brian was legally out of my life. It was bittersweet, but I knew it was for the best. Meanwhile, Paula began renovating the Toolshed into a livable space. She worked tirelessly, and I saw her determination to make things right. One afternoon, she invited me over to see her progress. As we walked through the Toolshed, which now looked more like a cozy studio, Paula spoke softly. This is my new beginning, Olivia. I want to thank you for giving me this chance. I looked around, impressed by her efforts. It's looking great, Paula. I'm glad you found your own space. She smiled, a genuine warmth in her eyes. And thank you for letting us start fresh, too. At home, the quiet evenings were a stark contrast to the chaos that once engulfed our lives. Paula and I gradually built a newfound bond, grounded in mutual respect and understanding. One day, as we sat on the porch enjoying the sunset, she turned to me. You know, Olivia, watching our favorite shows together has become my favorite part of the day. I chuckled, surprised by how much had changed. Mine too. Who would have thought? We laughed, the tension of the past finally easing away. Despite all the turmoil, we had come out stronger. I found peace in the everyday routines, enjoying the small moments that felt truly mine. The journey from betrayal to liberation had been hard and painful, but in the end, it forged a new chapter filled with promise. Paula and I survived the storm and discovered that sometimes even the most unlikely alliances could lead to genuine harmony. Together, we had built something that neither of us could have foreseen, a challenging yet uniquely rewarding peace. And with that, I knew I was ready to face whatever came next.
No one was home. Even though he works from home, I couldn't believe my daughter's words and glanced at my husband with suspicion. I wonder if he is hiding something. He's not even responding to my messages. What could he have been doing? I will get to the bottom of this. My name is Chelsea. The other day, at 35 years old, I experienced my first bout of lower back pain. I've heard it hurts whether you're standing, lying down, or sitting, and it's true. Going to the bathroom or taking a bath was excruciating. It made me realize how important my back is. If only I had a little more strength than I do now. About 3 years ago, I lived happily with my husband Harold and our elementary school daughter Diane. But things started to feel off in our marriage. It seems my husband has been in frequent contact with someone. He's so attached to his phone. It's like he's a high school girl sneaking it into the bathroom. He used to forget his phone at work often. I quickly noticed a drastic change in him. I thought about divorcing him, but we have a kid, and divorcing over one affair seems extreme. Fortunately, even if my husband's love for me has waned, he still adores our child. I refuse to accept that cheating is just something men do. But if it's not serious, maybe I can overlook a one-time mistake. Then, that's when Corona hit. Due to the lockdowns, my husband began working from home according to his company's policy. Meanwhile, as someone who works part-time as a cashier at the supermarket, There was no option for me to work from home. I continued going out to work. Naturally, my husband started helping more with household chores, and I began to see this situation as positive for our family. One of my colleagues at work mentioned, a fair partner gets infected. And now that I think about it, my husband has been spending less time on his phone. My husband used to sneak around and cheat behind my back, but ever since Corona became a thing, he's become remarkably quiet. Maybe he is afraid of getting caught. Perhaps their affair naturally fizzled out due to the pandemic. I thought I was lucky, but my husband's behavior changed again around autumn that year. Despite still working diligently from home, he began doing laundry frequently. He claimed he had to change clothes because he sweated so much. But did he really need to change outfits every day? Since he's home alone, couldn't he just stay in his sweaty clothes? He used to be such a laid-back person. So what changed? Not only did he change clothes frequently, but he also started paying attention to his hairstyle. Even though he's home all day, he's styling his hair with a styling gel. He's already middle-aged, so trying to look younger just makes him look tacky, or like he's too slick. Plus, he never even shows his face during online meetings. Who exactly is he trying to impress with his styled hair at home? I hate to ask, but you're not cheating, are you? My husband responded in a flustered voice. Huh? Why would I suddenly do that? But he's clearly nervous. His words are stumbling. His excuse sounds flimsy. So this has to confirm his guilt, right? Now, how do I gather evidence? He won't show me his phone, so catching him in the act might be the best option. But maybe because I've been considering the possibility of cheating all along, I wasn't shocked. Instead, I felt a slight thrill as I contemplated how to corner my husband. Maybe I was still subconsciously optimistic. Surely, my husband would come back to me, and I could assert my position as the rightful wife, ensuring he never cheated again. I brainstormed ways to catch my husband cheating. Then one day, an incident occurred. I received a call from an unknown number while at work. It was urgent. It was my husband, informing me that Diana had collapsed and was being taken to the hospital in an ambulance. That day, the school called to say Diana had a high fever, so I was waiting for updates. I wanted to rush to pick her up, but I couldn't leave work early due to staff shortages caused by the pandemic. He claimed he was in a meeting, so I couldn't reach him. I sent a message about Diana's fever, but no one was available to pick her up immediately. I asked if they could let her rest in the infirmary until I finished work. But an ambulance? Did she really collapse at school? My husband sounded panicked on the phone earlier, so I didn't know what was going on, but I felt uneasy. I rushed to the hospital where my husband and daughter were supposedly heading. When I arrived, Diana seemed fine, able to respond properly despite being feverish, and even managed to smile. Thank goodness. The doctor mentioned that if Diana had collapsed at school, my husband would have been with her in the ambulance. It was my first time experiencing such a situation, and I didn't know how the school would respond, but that's usually the case. Diana nodded. Yeah, Daddy rode in the ambulance with me. Oh, so Dad picked you up? Nope. Then what's going on? My husband avoided eye contact. Where exactly did you collapse? At the front door of our house. Why there? I felt really lonely, so I secretly left school and came home. Hearing this, I glanced at my phone and saw several missed calls from the school. So that's what happened. Diana has a habit of seeking comfort from others when she's feeling lonely due to a fever. She had never had a fever at school before, which was unexpected. I need to apologize to the school. And oh, she collapsed at the front door. No one was home, even though Dad works from home? He never heard the intercom. I rang it multiple times. My daughter isn't to blame. She's right. She did nothing wrong. If anyone's at fault, it's likely my husband, who's turning paler by the second. Actually, the paramedics mentioned that they received a call from a neighbor. They tried calling the intercom too, but no response. So they hurriedly called the paramedics for help instead. When the ambulance arrived and rang the intercom again, my husband finally answered, surprising them. They wondered why my husband, who should have been home, wasn't the one to report it despite the fact that Diana collapsed at the front door. How could he not notice the repeated calls? Wait a minute. Something is fishy. Oh, by the way, the number you called from in an ambulance was different from usual.
Oh, I forgot because I was in a rush.
I see. I smiled as I held my daughter close, ready to head home. She seems tired from the fever and was already dozing off. Thank goodness. For her, it's best to just let her sleep. Fortunately, my mother should be finished with her part-time job by now. Maybe she can help look after my daughter for a bit. There's something that needs to be resolved, no matter what. I hurriedly called my mother, ignored my husband, paid the bill, and headed for the parking lot.
Oh, wait. Don't go home yet.
My husband chased after me with a troubled expression, but I ignored him. Seriously, why would he say not to go home when our daughter has a fever? Something is really fishy. I took only my daughter in the car and left my husband stranded at the hospital. Returning home, my mother, who had rushed over, was waiting at the front door with a worried expression. Is Diana okay? Sorry, but could you look after her for a bit? My husband's affair partner is in this house. Huh? My mother exclaimed, surprised, but then said, If that's the case, make sure to solely deal with it. Thank you, Mom. Diana, sorry, but just stay with Grandma for a bit. I entered the house quietly with my mother and daughter. My mother went to Diana's room, still holding her, while I began my search. Apparently, my husband left not just his phone, but also his wallet. If he can use a taxi, it will take about an hour to walk from the hospital. If my hunch is correct, there should still be evidence of the affair here. I have to find it before my husband returns. However, there is no suspicious person in sight. She's probably hiding somewhere. I followed my intuition and headed to the bedroom, touching the locked closet door in front of me. As I thought, I don't remember closing it. A woman's tearful voice stopped abruptly, and I straightened up with a gasp. You're his affair partner? I asked, and she confessed everything. The woman's name is Maddie. She met my husband at a mixer-like event for married people. Maddie fell for my husband, who was unaware it was a mixer, and admitted to making the first move. Initially reluctant, my husband gradually warmed up after drinking, and they eventually began an affair. With the pandemic, it became difficult for them to meet after work, and they even broke up once. But my husband contacted her around the end of our daughter's summer vacation, asking to meet at our house. Moreover, my husband apparently took the day off today. A meeting, huh? It's all lies. He was in the middle of an affair when he heard the intercom at the time. Although he ignored the intercom at first, he heard the paramedics and emergency personnel shouting at the intercom, so he hastily got dressed and left. In his panic, my husband ended up hiding Maddie here, locking her in the closet, so Maddie couldn't escape. At least let her go, and you could have erased all traces of the affair. I thought my husband was a fool, but this explained his abnormal behavior. In short, the frequent changing of clothes was to mask the smell of other women, and he didn't notice the intercom or my calls because he was preoccupied. I used to think I could forgive a one-time affair, but if my husband is willing to endanger our daughter, then I'm done with him. After a while, the intercom rang. On the monitor, my husband, who must have hurried home, was asking me to open the door since he didn't have the keys. I pulled Maddie and opened the front door. At that moment, my husband's face paled. Sorry, I told her.
Chelsea, this is...
It would be useless to say anything. I already heard everything from her. As I said that, my husband accused Maddie.
What did you tell her?
Normally, people would think, you just got caught by your wife, you know. There's no way the cheating partner can't be questioned, right? I said, I'm sorry. My husband looked troubled.
Why did you apologize and spill the beans?
That's not the point. If you hadn't locked Maddie in the closet, things might have gone smoother, huh? It's your own fault. My husband couldn't retort to my words and hung his head low. Okay then, here's your phone and wallet. I handed them to my husband briskly.
What's going on?
I ignored my husband's query, and I pushed Maddie towards him. Well, thanks for everything until now. About the divorce papers and alimony, we'll talk later. It's done. I wish you both happiness.
Huh? Wait! Please, Chelsea, I will apologize properly, so let me in.
No way. Not inside the house. It's disgusting to be cheated on, but today, Diana's not feeling well, so until the property division and procedures are done, I will stay here or at my parents'. You're leaving, so don't make any unreasonable demands. You heard everything already, didn't you? Maddie is also married, isn't that great? Well, that is, if you get along well with her husband. So goodbye now. I smiled and closed the front door. I felt like I heard my husband dying scream, but I ignored it. Afterward, my husband repeatedly begged for reconsideration, having broken up with the affair partner. But I didn't accept, seeing him as a pest. I demanded alimony from him, and Maddie's husband also sought compensation. Maddie didn't love my husband so much to divorce, but chose to mend her relationship with her own husband instead. Maddie's husband, however, couldn't forgive his wife being taken by another man, so they continued the farce of marriage. It seemed my husband didn't really love Maddie that much after all, because it was me he truly cared for. For him, being abandoned by both his wife and the affair partner made him fear women. It's not just about never cheating again, but possibly never being with a woman again for him, making this a traumatic event. He seems to want to see his daughter, but Diana seems to understand what had happened that day as she grows, even though I haven't said anything. She has grown to dislike him, so she doesn't want to see him anymore. To him, this is very painful. Meanwhile, my daughter and I began living with my mother. It's close to our old home, which helps because my daughter doesn't have to change elementary schools, and I don't have to change workplaces either. My father was livid about my husband's affair. Meanwhile, my mother praised me for divorcing. Living with their granddaughter brings joy. They are grateful for the move and thanks me often. Ironically, divorce seems to have brought my parents closer. My daughter enjoys the time when my father helps with homework and my mother plays with her. She has become quite a grandpa's girl. They say children raised by grandparents turn out to be kind. I hope my daughter does too. The other day, my mother's birthday and Christmas fell on the same day, so we had a small party with the whole family. My mother and daughter baked the cake, and despite the clumsy decorations by my daughter, it added a sense of warmth. My father had once said he would be happy to have such moments with his family again, even when he gets older. I hope for such a future too, where we can all sit together at the dinner table and share a drink. For that, I said, "You got live long, Dad." He laughed and said,
"Leave it to me,"
when he mentioned walking my daughter down the aisle someday. My daughter didn't seem to fully grasp the meaning of walking down the aisle yet. "So let's walk together, Mom, Grandpa, Grandma, and everyone." It might be a lively walk down the aisle, but that might be good too. I'm looking forward to a future where the whole family can always be happy. Despite everything that happened, that's how things stand these days.
My bracelet is missing. I bet your mom took it again without asking.
Stop complaining. It's for Mom.
My husband's mother has a habit of taking my things without permission, and he just goes along with it. Why won't you help me? I'm seriously upset about this. Around that time, Paul's prized luxury car was stolen. I knew who the culprit was. I'm Karen, 28 years old. My happy life with Paul started to crumble about a year into our marriage. We both work, but I get off work earlier, so I usually get home first and prepare dinner. That day, as I awaited for him, he came home and announced,
"Next week, Mom's staying with us."
"What? What do you mean she's staying with us?" He got irritated and clarified,
"She's staying with us. She's moving in."
"Huh? She's moving in?"
"Yeah, it's like living together. Dad passed away and Mom's been alone. She's getting older and it's tough for her."
"Wait a minute. You can't just decide this on your own. What about our life? I need some time to think about this." However, he just laughed it off, saying,
"Don't worry. Our life won't change. Mom wants to live with us for peace of mind."
I get that living alone can be scary, but deciding to live together without even consulting me? Couldn't you have mentioned it?
No need to report every detail to you. She's my mother, after all.
That's exactly why you should tell me. It's different when it's someone else's parent. I have to be considerate.
Why are you so upset? I've already decided. So, just go along with it, okay?
Wait a minute. I protested, but he just left the room. Left alone, I felt increasingly frustrated. How could he make such a big decision like living together without considering my feelings? He doesn't do any chores, and living with her doesn't seem to bother him because it's his mother. We tried to discuss it several times, but he insisted it was already decided and wouldn't engage in a real conversation. As planned, the next week, my mother-in-law, Mary, moved in. I might not have been so opposed to living together if she was decent, but she's a mean-spirited, manipulative mother-in-law. That's why I've always kept my visit to my in-laws to a minimum. But now she was moving in, and here she is. Sure enough, from day one, she started throwing snide remarks my way. "Karen, didn't you know I was coming today? There's dirt in the corner of the room." I'm sorry, I had work today and didn't have time to clean. No excuses. You could have done it after work. But then I wouldn't have had time to prepare dinner. Oh, always talking back. Is this how you act as my son's wife? Be more efficient. I'm sorry. She had been in our house for only 10 minutes and was already causing trouble. I dreaded what was to come. Since then, her rude behavior escalated, constantly stressing me out. One day, I came home from work, and she greeted me with a big smile, saying, "Welcome home." It was unusual, so I was taken aback. Then I noticed something shiny around her neck. Wait a minute, that necklace looks like mine. I had a bad feeling and rushed to my room to check my jewelry box. Just as I suspected, my necklace was missing. I went straight to the living room where Mary was sitting and confronted her. "Mary, that necklace you're wearing is mine, isn't it?" "Oh, you finally noticed. It looks good on me, doesn't it?" I couldn't believe her audacity. "What? Please stop using other people's things without permission." "What's the big deal about borrowing something? It's not like it gets used up." "That's not the point. Stop complaining and go prepare dinner. My son will be home soon." Preparing dinner with her constantly criticizing me intensified my stress. That night, I couldn't take it anymore and decided to talk to Paul. "Hey, Paul, can we talk?" "What's up?" "Today, your mom wore my necklace without asking." "Oh, really?" he said nonchalantly. "Do you understand what I'm saying? She went into my room, opened my jewelry box, and took it without permission." "Took it? Aren't you exaggerating? I'm sure she didn't mean any harm," he said, taking his mother's side, and I felt quite rage building up. I tried to keep my voice calm, and I repeatedly explained to him. How can she not mean any harm when she enters my room and takes my things without permission? Normally, people apologize for using something without asking. "Mom just happened to find something nice." "That's not the point. Please talk to her about it." "What? You want me to talk to her about it?" "Yes, of course. She looks down on me. No matter how much I say, it won't make a difference. You're her son. She listens to you." "All right, I'll talk to her." "Thank you." Despite saying that, it seems like he had completely forgotten about it by the next day. I glared at him several times, but he never ended up talking to his mother about it. Since then, she started using my things without returning them. In other words, she was practically stealing them. No matter how much I asked her not to do it, it was useless because none of the rooms in this house have locks. There's no point in saying anything. At this rate, I'm going to lose all my things. I have to stop her somehow. I need to think of a plan. Then, one day, something unforgivable happened. "What? It's gone! It's gone! Why?" I was getting ready to meet a friend and wanted to wear my mother's bracelet, which I kept in the back of a drawer in my desk because it was very special, but it was missing. Clearly, Mary was the only suspect. When I confronted her firmly, she casually admitted to the theft. "Oh, that bracelet? I just borrowed it." "You borrowed it? Then please return it right now. I need it." "Ah, that's not possible." "Why?" "Because I sold it." "You sold it?" I couldn't believe it. It had to be a joke. She could have just sold someone else's property. I countered her, still in shock. "Mary, stop joking around and give it back now." "I'm not joking. I've sold most of the things I borrowed from you." What? Are you out of your mind? As we were arguing, Paul, who had just woken up, came over. Paul, listen, your mom sold my bracelet. Your bracelet? It was my late mother's, and Mary here has sold almost everything she's borrowed from me. Mom, is that true? She stuck out her tongue theatrically. Well, I live on a pension, you know. I didn't want to be a burden to you, but I needed some spending money to live every day. You didn't answer his question, Mary. You can't just take my things and sell them, you know. Don't get so mad. I didn't mean any harm. If you didn't mean any harm, you wouldn't steal and or sell someone else's things in the first place. So, where and how did you sell it? Buy it back right now. Paul suddenly raised his voice, glaring not at Mary, but at me. Paul. What? My bracelet. Your mom took it without asking. Shut up. It's for Mom, so don't complain. Whoa, hold up. You've got to be kidding me. Why do I have to give up something important to me for your mom? If it makes her happy, then it's fine. She's your mother too. Isn't it a form of respect? As a wife, just listen and do as told. At that moment, I snapped. Enough is enough! Mary, who steals, and Paul, who sides with her. I couldn't stand living with these people anymore. My anger boiling over, I yelled back. That's it! I'm done! This is pointless! If you're not going to give it back, then we're getting a divorce. What? Stop joking about divorce. I'm not joking. I'm serious. Yeah, whatever. I'll bring the divorce papers today then. Fine. If that's how you want to play this, I have no problem with it. Mary looked pleased with our exchange. She probably always found me bothersome. Her real aim must have been to drive me out and live alone with her son. That night, Paul came home and handed me a filled-out divorce paper. After signing it, I decided to start packing my things. I decided to leave when the timing was right. During a break at work, I checked my phone and saw several missed calls from Paul's sister, Erica. Wondering if something had happened, I called her back. She told me a shocking fact. Are you serious? Yeah, dead serious. It's a very rare type, not something you see around here. But why? Oh, I took a photo, so you can check. All right. Right after hanging up, she sent me the photo. It was undeniable proof that would lead to the downfall of her household. When I got home and was preparing dinner, Paul came up to me frantic. Karen, what's going on? What's wrong? The car's gone. My car is missing. Oh, that's too bad. I replied nonchalantly. Why are you so indifferent? You know how much I cared about that car, right? Yeah, I know. You've always wanted it since you were single, and you finally bought it last year. Then show some concern. There's still a loan on that car. Where did it go? You didn't take it without asking, did you? Of course not. I have my own car. Besides, I know you'd get mad if I drove it. Right. But that car, it was here. Glancing at Mary, she quickly averted her eyes from me. Confident in my suspicion, I hinted to my husband. It seems like your mom knows something about it. Why? What does she have to do with this? Right, Mary? I turned to her and her face quickly went pale. What do you mean, Karen? Why would Mom be involved? Actually, I got a call from Erica today. From Erica? She happened to be shopping and saw Mary driving your car. No! Your car is blue, right? It's rare around here. and the license plate numbers are easy to remember. She recognized it immediately.
What's going on?
Paul was furious and confronted his mother. She then started making excuses in a panic. No, it's not like that. I just borrowed the car for a bit.
Borrowed? What the heck, Mom? How many times did I ask you not to touch that car?
Sorry, Paul. I just really wanted to drive it.
And where's the car now? Did you leave it somewhere?
No, but I left the keys in it. Maybe someone nearby stole it.
What? Please tell me you're lying.
I swear I drove it home. I'm not lying. I showed her a piece of evidence that contradicted her story. Mary, you said you drove the car home, but you're lying because you see right here. What? Karen, why do you have that picture? The photo I showed was the one Erica had sent me. It showed Mary driving the car with a big dent in it. Erica took this photo just in case and sent it to me. Mary, you damaged the car and couldn't drive it back, right? No, that's not it. Then where is the car? And don't you think someone would have noticed if it was stolen from the neighborhood? Paul started shaking with rage, his face contorted in anger, and he turned on his mother.
Have you gone crazy? Where did you put my car? Give it back now.
Calm down, Paul.
Calm down? You're going to pay for the repairs.
That's not possible. I already sold that car.
You sold it? That's impossible. The car is registered in my name.
I found a dealer that buys anything. They said I could sell it as an agent, so I sold it for $5,700.
What? $5,700?
His car is still worth tens of thousands of dollars, but Mary, unaware of its value, got swindled by some shady dealer. Realizing this, he exploded in anger, yelling at her like never before.
What have you done, Mom? Do you know how much that car meant to me?
I'm sorry, Paul.
You'll pay for this.
I'll give you the $5,700, so let's forget about it.
You owe me way more than that.
He forced her out of the house and locked the front door. Then he turned to me, dejected.
I never thought Mom could be this terrible. I'm sorry for not standing by you.
You finally understand, but it's okay. I don't care anymore.
I've kicked her out, so let's try to get along as a couple again.
No, it's over. He was dumbfounded, his face turned pale, and he clung to me.
Wait, I've kicked Mom out. There's no reason for a divorce.
I'm fed up with you, too. My decision to divorce won't change. There was no turning back for me. You always took your mother's side.
That's too much. You're being too harsh.
Harsh? You did nothing when I needed help. Now it's too late. You're getting what you deserve. I hate you as much as your mother. My feelings will never change.
Karen, calm down.
Shut up. It's all your fault for deciding to live with her without consulting me. Reflect on that, jerk. I'll never forgive you. The car thing is your own doing. Serves you right.
What? You really think that?
Well, duh. Struggle with the house and car loans. It's the perfect punishment for you. Fall as far as you can, you jerk. With that, I took my packed bags and left the house. I went straight to the city hall to file for divorce. I deleted all of Paul's contacts and cut off all ties with him. Later, I filed claims for the sold personal items. Mary, who had to start working, was now being charged for the car by her son and would probably have to work for the rest of her life. Paul was left with just the loans for the house and car. His life completely changed. He couldn't even enjoy drives for stress relief anymore and spent his days off confined to his house. They were both beyond help. It was a perfect case of poetic justice. Serves them right. I moved to an apartment near my workplace. Now single, I had more financial freedom and a much easier life. Maybe I'll go to the beach or a concert today. This is what freedom feels like. I'm going to enjoy my days off and relish my new life.
I married a man with a stepchild. However, we currently have a strained relationship due to differences in parenting styles. My relationship with my stepdaughter has also deteriorated. And then an incident occurred. Suddenly, at one point, my husband and stepdaughter started ignoring me. They ignore my morning greetings, my attempts at conversation, and even when they are talking together, they don't include me in the conversation. Despite my efforts to break the situation, nothing seems to work. Feeling helpless, I overheard a terrible conversation between my husband and stepdaughter. What is this? Is this how they really think of me? I can't bear being ignored like this anymore. I've made up my mind to leave the house. Then, a few days later, something unbelievable happened with my husband. My name is Mary, and I'm 30 years old. I work as a company employee in an IT firm. My husband, Mark, who is 9 years older, and I have been married for 2 years. I got to know Mark through a friend's introduction, and we started dating. I was drawn to Mark's gentlemanly and nurturing nature. Our daughter, Natalie, is 14 years old. The three of us live together in an apartment. As you can tell from Natalie's age, she's not my biological daughter, but Mark's stepchild. He was in a previous relationship, and Natalie is the child from that relationship. Mark and his ex-wife divorced when Natalie was young. The reason for their divorce was said to be the result of their busy work schedules causing them to drift apart. Mark's ex-wife abandoned Natalie's custody and disappeared somewhere. Since then, Mark has been raising Natalie on his own. Before we got married, he told me that he was bisexual and had a child. I struggled with the idea of dating him for a while, but I decided to meet Natalie first. Natalie seemed like a modern girl, dressed in fashionable clothes, and was quite adorable.
Nice to meet you. I'm Natalie. My dad always talks about you.
Nice to meet you too. I'm Mary. Likewise, I'm grateful for everything Mark has done for me.
Oh, come on. Don't be so nervous. I wanted to chat with you too.
Natalie cheerfully addressed me, sensing my nervousness. Natalie didn't seem opposed to my relationship with Mark. In fact, she seemed somewhat pleased about it.
I've always felt lonely without a mom around. I know Dad has been trying his best to raise me, but since you get along so well and are such a nice person, I would be happy if you could be my mom.
Upon hearing that, I felt the desire to become her mother. After some time, Mark proposed to me and I accepted. At first, my parents were hesitant about our marriage, given the circumstances. It's natural for parents to feel that way when their child is trying to raise a child who isn't biologically related. Still, I made an effort to convince both of my parents. I earnestly wanted to become a family with Mark and Natalie, and I fought for it. Somehow, my desperate feelings must have gotten through, and my parents eventually agreed to our marriage. And so, by hook or by crook, I managed to marry Mark. The first few months of our marriage went smoothly. Natalie started calling me Mom, and Mark was kind to me. But gradually, our life became more and more unsettled. After dinner, Natalie lounges on the living room sofa without clearing her plate. Meanwhile, Mark sits beside her, watching TV and drinking alcohol. I reminded Natalie to clean up her plate. Natalie, you should clean up your plate after eating. Didn't I remind you about this the other day? Although I intended to express a reasonable opinion, Natalie glared at me with an unhappy expression.
Huh? Ugh, you're such a pain. Can't you do it, Mom?
No, you have to clean up your own plate. You're already in middle school, so you should take care of your own things properly.
Stop lecturing me about every little thing. You're so annoying.
Just because I asked her to wash the dishes, Natalie adopts a defiant attitude towards me. Feeling irritated, I ended up scolding Natalie sharply. What's with that tone? As I argued with Natalie, Mark took Natalie's side.
Hey, don't say mean things just because Natalie is a stepchild. You should handle the post-dinner cleanup yourself.
Just because she's a stepchild doesn't mean she knows everything. I'm doing this for Natalie's own good. Natalie and Mark completely leave the household chores to me. They don't even try to help voluntarily. When asked, they help, but not without grumbling. Even when I say we're family, so let's cooperate, my husband insists.
Housework is a woman's work.
While Natalie retorts,
You're so cold for a mother.
I'm also busy with work, especially when we both work. At such times, when household chores are neglected, they both invariably start accusing me of slacking off. Moreover, Mark and I have been arguing over differences in educational approach. Natalie, our 14-year-old daughter in the third year of junior high school, is facing entrance exams for high school. Despite this, Natalie doesn't study and just plays around. She's always like this.
I don't have to study desperately. It'll be fine. I can get good grades without studying much.
Indeed, Natalie has a good aptitude, so even with little study time, her school grades aren't bad. However, it's impossible to pass exams without studying, especially considering that Natalie wants to attend a private high school. It's never a bad idea to develop a habit of studying. Since it's a matter concerning her future, I've urged Natalie to study many times. However, instead of taking my concern to heart, Natalie just rebels and snaps back at me with a hurtful,
Stop nagging!
Even when I try to discuss it with Mark, he doesn't seem to listen.
She's responsible enough, so she'll be fine. Nagging like that only kills her motivation. Don't say such irresponsible things.
Once she becomes a high school student, studying will become much harder than it is now, you know? Especially if she's going to a private school, it's even more important to teach her the importance of studying.
Stop being so annoying. You're not even her real mother, so don't act like you know everything. Have you become more unpleasant since before we got married?
The issue of Natalie's education has led to numerous arguments between my husband and me, souring our relationship. On top of that, Mark has been spending less time at home lately. While he claims it's due to his busy work schedule, I can't help but wonder if he simply doesn't want to be around me. My relationship with Natalie has also become quite strained, because of her rebellious attitude, which often leaves me feeling miserable. The thought of divorce crosses my mind, but I find it hard to make a decision. Given that I convinced my parents and got married, I worry about being judged if we were to divorce within just 2 years. As I grapple with these thoughts, an incident occurs. One day, when I tried to greet Natalie in the morning, something strange happened. Good morning, Natalie. Breakfast is ready, so go ahead and eat. Natalie heads to the kitchen without responding to my words. I tilt my head, wondering if my daughter simply didn't notice my greeting. However, it seems there's more to it. No matter how much I try to engage her in conversation afterward, Natalie continues to ignore me. Whether I bid her farewell as she leaves for school or greet her when she returns home, she ignores me completely. She's treating me as if I don't exist at all. Feeling troubled, I turned to Mark for advice when he returned from work. Hey, Mark, there's something I want to talk to you about regarding Natalie.
Ugh.
Huh? Mark? Wait a minute. Why aren't you responding? My husband, too, ignores me as I desperately try to engage him in conversation. Even after finishing dinner, Mark and Natalie remain silent, not saying a word, and quickly retreat to their rooms. Since then, I've been ignored by both my husband and daughter. No matter how much I try to talk to them, neither of them responds at all. Even when I try to join in Mark and Natalie's conversation, I'm the only one ignored. I took the initiative to do household chores and even tried to cook their favorite dishes to get their attention, but nothing seemed to work. As I juggled work and household chores alone, my fatigue gradually accumulated. On weekends, Mark and Natalie started going out to eat together more often, leaving me behind. And despite being a family, I felt completely left out and deeply saddened. How did things end up like this? Although there has been tension in the air lately, this is not the way to treat me. I couldn't understand why they suddenly started behaving this way. Despite my attempts to initiate conversation, being ignored made me feel like my heart was breaking. At that moment, I received a surprising phone call. One day, when I returned home from work, Mark and Natalie were having a serious discussion. First, Natalie made a statement mocking me, saying,
Mom is so simple-minded.
in a way that made me feel foolish. She continued smugly.
The ignoring strategy was a huge success. Just by us ignoring her, Mom stays quiet and does all the housework without saying anything extra. If there's such an easy way, we should have ignored her sooner.
Moreover, my husband agrees.
Besides, she earns our living expenses and has become a convenient housekeeper. She used to be quite lively, but lately she's been trying to please us and stopped nagging. She really came in handy.
From now on, I'll be a high school student and will need money, so she'll still have to earn for us. I'm young and I have a lot I want to do, so I can't be bothered with housework. Mom needs to work extra hard.
Absolutely. Our current lifestyle is comfortable and nice. Let's continue ignoring her like this. I mean, I originally married that woman out of a desire for household comfort. This kind of life suits her better.
My husband and daughter are chatting and laughing gleefully as they have such a conversation. Listening to their conversation, I reached my breaking point. I will never forgive them. I will drag both of them into hell. The next morning, after finishing all my preparations, I greeted Mark and Natalie. However, as usual, they ignored me. Natalie even went as far as scoffing at me. After they were gone, I packed my belongings and left the house. When I suddenly returned home, my family was surprised, but after hearing the circumstances, they said,
"You can stay as long as you need."
When my parents comforted me with words like, "It must have been tough," I felt like crying. I had thought they would blame me for what had happened, despite my desperate efforts to convince them to let me marry Mark. However, my parents understood my feelings better than anyone else. Then, a few days later, I was relaxing at my parents' house when I got a call from Mark. When I answered the phone in disgust, he suddenly started cursing at me.
"Where are you? Aren't you ashamed to be fooling around despite being a mother? It's about time you come back home."
After breaking his silence for the first time in a while, he starts yelling at me as if I'm the one at fault. I replied to Mark with wariness in my voice. No thanks. I have no intention of changing. I'm divorcing you, Mark. I can't continue with you anymore.
Huh? What are you talking about, selfishly? Stop acting like a child just because I ignored you for a bit. I'll never agree to a divorce.
He seems to staunchly refuse divorce, perhaps because he doesn't want to let go of the housekeeper. However, with my next words, he froze. No, I will definitely ask for a divorce. Because you're cheating, aren't you? I had received a phone call earlier. It was actually from the husband of Mark's affair partner. Mark's late returns weren't due to work, but because he was meeting with his affair partner. When he went out on holidays, he was actually going out to eat with his affair partner. Actually, when Natalie and Mark were talking together, I overheard such conversations.
Dad's affair partner is beautiful and pretty. It would have been better if she were Mom instead. Then I could brag about it to everyone in my class.
I think so too, but she's married, you know? Besides, I can't have her acting like a housekeeper. Her pretty hands would get rough. Housekeepers are meant for plain and simple women like your mom, Mary.
It seems my husband never even dreamt that I knew about his affair. I told the stunned Mark, delivering another blow. I will claim alimony from you. Oh, and I've sold that apartment. It's better for you to leave quickly. The apartment where we lived as a family was bought by my father before marriage and is in my name. So I arranged for movers to transport all the furniture I bought to the new apartment, which I purchased secretly. After leaving the house, I sold the apartment where we used to live and bought a new one for living alone. I did all of this secretly without telling my husband and daughter. Of course, I had permission from my father. If anything, I would say that my father was more enthusiastic than I was. By the way, I sent Mark and Natalie's belongings to his parents' house. I included a letter detailing the various circumstances just to be safe. However, even if they wanted to return to his parents' home, there would be no place for them. In addition to Mark's parents, his brother's family also lives there, and Mark doesn't get along well with his father. To make matters worse, he was cheating. It's clear that Mark will be estranged from his parents. Feeling cornered, he desperately begged for forgiveness over the phone, realizing his precarious situation.
I'm sorry. Natalie and I took advantage of your kindness. The temptation of infidelity was just a momentary lapse caused by frustration at work. I only love you, Mary. Please, forgive me.
Mark earnestly apologizes, but that's not something I inclined to believe. I've tried to be a real family with them. I was tough on Natalie because I was worried about her future. I argued with Mark because I wanted us as a couple to think about our daughter Natalie together. But they ignored and hurt me for stupid reasons like wanting an easy life and wanting to have their own way. I can't live with people like that anymore. You and Natalie don't want a family, do you? You just want a maid you can call whenever you need something done, right? I tried to become part of your family, but that's just terrible, isn't it? There's absolutely no way I could stay with people like you in the future.
That's not what I'm thinking at all. I really feel sorry. Natalie also says she wants to apologize to her mom.
I'm not going to tolerate a disrespectful daughter who mocks others. Did Natalie say she wanted a beautiful mom? I'm sure she would be happier to be a stranger with me. Don't involve me anymore. With that, I hung up the phone. A few days later, the divorce with Mark was finalized through a lawyer. I demanded alimony from him and his affair partner. The husband of the affair partner also demanded alimony from the two of them. Mark depleted his savings but still had to take out loans to repay the alimony for both of them. He and Natalie are now living in an old, cheap apartment after being evicted from their apartment. The affair partner borrowed money from her parents to pay the alimony and is now working at a relative's factory. I thought it was all over, but a few months later, surprisingly, I received a reconciliation request from Mark.
Hey, Mary. Please, give me another chance.
What's this all of a sudden? You and I are already divorced and strangers. Don't contact me out of the blue like this.
Please, don't say that. Natalie is in trouble right now.
According to Mark, it seems Natalie couldn't afford to attend the prestigious private high school due to his debts. Natalie reluctantly enrolled in a public high school. However, due to her selfish personality, she was disliked by the entire class and ended up isolated. It seems that now Natalie, feeling mistreated by her classmates, has become a shut-in and spends her days venting her frustrations. On top of that, with no one to do the chores, the room is getting dirtier and dirtier. It seems like they might get kicked out of the apartment they're living in due to the foul odor. Mark says that such a situation is Natalie's own fault. I won't go back to you. Don't ever contact me again. I decisively rejected any possibility of reconciliation and blocked Mark's number. Right now, I'm living peacefully with my parents while focusing on my job. Considering the troubles with my family, I'm not thinking about marriage for a while. For now, I just want to develop a better eye for men. When I was young, my parents cheated on each other and were just a facade of a married couple. It was my current husband who taught me how to love, as I had completely lost any desire to marry. But he, too, was cheating on me. Why?
I would never do anything to make you sad.
That's what he told me. Does everyone ultimately betray others? The person who saved me when I was about to give up on everything was someone I never expected. My name is Lily, 28 years old. I grew up with a domineering father, a totally submissive mother, and a kind brother. On the surface, we were a happy family, but both of my parents were having affairs. We weren't short on money, but I felt lonely growing up in a completely hands-off household. In contrast, my brother was very kind, and always took care of me so I wouldn't feel lonely. I'm truly grateful to him. Growing up with such parents, I had no desire to marry. I thought I would just end up being betrayed if I got married. Even if I had kids, they would just end up feeling sorry for themselves, like I did. For several years after entering the workforce, I focused solely on my job without any romantic involvement. I thought my job would be my only love, but it was my current husband who supported me. His name is Kevin, and he's 32. We met at a mixer I was reluctantly dragged to. I was quietly drinking at one end of the table, while he was the life of the party, making everyone laugh. The day after the mixer, Kevin started contacting me frequently. Of course, I had no intention of dating him and had just exchanged contact information out of politeness, so at first, I responded coldly. But he persisted, honestly expressing his feelings.
I know you're not interested in dating, but I just can't help wanting to spend my life with you.
Don't say things like that so easily. I really don't think about marriage because of my parents.
I understand you can't trust someone, but I'm not your parents. I'm me.
I know, but...
Anyway, I'm not giving up. I'm confident I can make you happy.
That's irresponsible.
I'm serious. I would never do anything to make you sad. You're responding to me because you know staying like this isn't good, right?
He was absolutely right. Indeed, I couldn't have a positive image of marriage. But on the other hand, it was also true that I felt envious seeing people around me getting married. So, I started dating him, somewhat swept up by the momentum. After a year and a half of dating, we finally got married. There was another reason I decided to marry him. It was his son. Kevin was divorced and had a 6-year-old son, Sean, with his ex-wife. The reason for their divorce was his ex-wife's affair. That's why he deeply understood and tried to understand my feelings. Sean, who didn't have a mother, quickly became attached to me when I started dating Kevin. Just recently this happened. Sean, is there anything you want for dinner tonight?
Anything's fine. Everything you make is delicious, Mom.
Huh? Sean, did you just call me Mom?
I've always wanted to call you that. Hope that was okay.
Of course it is. I'm really happy.
Just think of me as your real son, okay?
Of course. Thank you, Sean. He acknowledged me as his mother, even though we're not related by blood. Life with my kind husband and adorable son was very happy. But that happiness didn't last long. One day, when I got home early from work, I found Sean sitting at the front door. He always carries a key and should have been able to get in by himself. Thinking this, I hurried over to him. Sean, what's wrong? Why are you sitting here?
Mom.
You'll catch a cold. It's cold out here. Let's go inside.
But...
He pointed to a pair of shoes at the entrance. What?
Today, school let out early. When I got home, I saw these shoes, and I heard a woman's voice I didn't know in the living room, and I got scared.
I saw a pair of unfamiliar woman's shoes. I tiptoed alone towards the living room. Peeking through the door gap, I saw my husband getting cozy with a woman I didn't recognize. I quietly took pictures as evidence and quickly left the house. Sean looked at me worriedly and spoke.
Mom, are you okay? You look unwell.
I'm fine. It seems like one of Dad's friends came over.
His friend?
Yes, so it would be bad to interrupt them. Let's go out for dinner tonight.
Okay. Then I want a hamburger.
All right, let's go right away. I left the place as quickly as I could, desperate not to let my son know what was happening. On the way to the restaurant, I kept up light conversation to avoid worrying him, but I couldn't shake off the scene I had just witnessed. I remembered what my husband had once said.
I would never do anything to make you sad.
He had promised me that. So, why did this happen? I thought I would be safe with him. In the end, I was betrayed, not only by my parents, but also by my husband. While we were eating at the restaurant, tears welled up in my eyes, and sensing something, Sean spoke up.
Mom, are you okay? I'm here for you, Mom. I'll grow up quickly and protect you.
Oh, Sean.
So, wait a little longer. I'll become a strong and cool man.
Thank you, Sean. I'm looking forward to it. I don't need anything else as long as he's with me. Just being able to watch him grow up calling me Mom is enough for me. I decided to keep our family going for his sake. 10 years later, time had flown by and little Sean was now a high school student.
I will become a strong and cool man.
He had declared this, and true to his word, he worked hard in both his studies and sports. Thanks to his efforts, he got into the top theology school in the area with excellent grades. Before I knew it, he had grown taller than me and was taking on a more mature air. Meanwhile, my husband Kevin probably continued his affairs. Perhaps as a form of atonement, his extravagant declarations of love had become more excessive than before we were married.
Good morning, sweet Lily. I love you so much.
Thanks. What time will you be home today?
I'll probably have to work late again. I think it'll be after midnight. No need to wait up for me, okay?
Okay, got it. For years now, my husband had been increasingly absent from home, claiming late work or business trips. Even when he came home late, he wouldn't eat or even take a bath, but would go straight to bed, faintly smelling of soap. During this time, I continued to gather evidence of his infidelity. I checked his computer and the receipts he left around whenever he was away from home. Gradually, I learned more about his mistress. Honestly, I was in a favorable position if it came to divorce. My only concern was Sean, who had been showing signs of deep thought or worry ever since he started high school. Sean, what's wrong? You're hardly eating.
Oh, just thinking about something. I'll make sure to eat.
Are you feeling okay? You've been studying hard too.
I'm really fine. Hey, Mom, Dad said he's working late tonight, right?
Uh-huh, that's right. Why?
How about we go out to eat together, just the two of us? It's been a while.
That sounds lovely. Let's go out for dinner tonight. He was a high school student, likely dealing with his own issues. I decided not to pry and give him space. That night, we met up after work and headed to our favorite Italian restaurant. We were both excited for our rare dinner out, but as we peeked into the restaurant from outside, we saw something unbelievable.
Dad? Mom, look.
What? It was Kevin sitting with a woman enjoying a meal, just the two of them. I recognized her. She was the woman I saw with him in our living room 10 years ago. He was still involved with her. And to think they would come to this restaurant we often visited as a family? Stunned, I was pulled away by Sean to a nearby cafe. Once we settled down, he began to speak.
Mom, I'm sorry. I knew.
You did? You mean you...
Yeah, that Dad has been cheating since I was in elementary school.
You knew since elementary school? I tried so hard to keep it from you.
Do you remember 10 years ago, when I was sitting at the front door? I somehow understood what he was doing was wrong, even as a kid.
Sean.
But seeing you trying so hard to smile and act normal, I just couldn't bring myself to say anything after that.
Oh, sweetie. I had no idea he knew about his father's affairs all this time. I made him endure so much. Suddenly overwhelmed with guilt, I immediately apologized. Sean, I'm so sorry. I didn't divorce him because I didn't want to lose you.
You don't have to apologize.
Sean slammed his hand on the table.
I care about you too, Mom. That's why I've been thinking about what I can do. I made up my mind when I started middle school.
Made up your mind?
When you turn 15, you can decide which parent to live with in case of a divorce. So I thought I'd keep things as they are until I was in high school.
Sean, you thought that far ahead?
I want to protect you, Mom. You've always taken care of me. That's why I can't forgive Dad. Mom, will you fight this with me?
At that moment, my resolve for revenge solidified. For 10 years, I had turned a blind eye to the truth, but my son reignited my resolve. With his determined gaze, I knew, together we can overcome anything. Even though we're not related by blood, I had legally adopted him, so I could stand in a custody battle. With more than enough evidence of infidelity, I was certain we could get a divorce. We didn't need a man like that. Together, Sean and I planned our revenge. 3 months later, an opportunity arose. My husband was going away on a 4-day business trip. As he left the house, he threw his usual exaggerated words of love.
Lily, honey, I'm off then.
Have a safe trip. Don't work too hard.
Thanks. Oh, I wish this wasn't a business trip. I'd love to go on a trip with you, just the two of us, spending more time together.
Well, let's work. What can you do? Have a safe trip.
Relax a bit while I'm gone, okay? See you.
I had already hired a detective to investigate his actions. This business trip was actually a cover for another affair. As soon as he left the house, Sean and I started packing together. We packed all of Kevin's belongings and sent them to his parents' house. Then, we moved to a new apartment we had previously arranged. In the car on the way to our new home, Sean spoke up.
Hey, Mom, are you really okay with me coming with you?
What are you talking about now? I've been enduring Kevin's cheating all this time because I didn't want to be apart from you.
But wouldn't you be better off without me around?
Don't be silly. I've been working hard all this time for you, Sean. We promised to get revenge on that man together, remember?
Yeah, you're right. Let's make him pay.
After we finished moving and unpacking, we decided to wait for Kevin to return. 2 days later, he came back from his affair trip and called me frantic.
Lily, what the hell did you do?
What do you mean?
Don't play dumb. You sent all my stuff to my parents' house, didn't you? They called, overwhelmed with boxes.
Oh, they arrived safely then. You know, the apartment we lived in was in my name. I decided to move out, so I had your crap sent to your parents' place.
Why would you say that?
Why? Because I'm ending our marriage.
What?
He seemed bewildered by my cold attitude. Stammering, he tried to appeal to me.
Why are you doing this? I've been working hard for our family all this time.
For our family? How dare you lie like that? I know you've been cheating on me.
What are you talking about? I haven't been...
Don't you dare play dumb with me. I realized I was shouting. How could you have an affair with another woman when you have Sean? You promised never to make me sad, and yet you've been cheating for 10 years. What kind of nerve do you have?
How did you...
I've been gathering evidence of your affair since I became sure of it 10 years ago. Sean has been helping me. We're so getting a divorce.
Wait, please. I never intended to...
I was disgusted that even in this situation, he was only thinking of himself. I yelled at him. Shut up! I don't need you in my life anymore. Sean is all I need. Don't ever contact me or my son again. I'll make sure to get a hefty alimony from you. Just go and drown in debt with your mistress. Rot in hell, you jerk.
Lily, wait.
Sean then snatched the phone from me and lashed out at his father.
Don't you ever call us again, you cheater. Sean, wait. Shut up. I'm going to live with Mom. You're no father to me. Stay away from us forever.
He hung up the phone with force. That's how we finally severed ties with Kevin. I immediately went to a lawyer's office to proceed with a divorce. A month later, the divorce was finalized. We managed to claim a large amount in alimony from my ex-husband and his mistress. Apparently, the mistress was all married and ended up being sued for alimony by her own husband. My ex-husband, having spent most of his savings on her, had to take out loans to pay the alimony. In the end, the mistress left him, choosing to rebuild her life with her husband. He was truly alone now. We blocked his number and didn't give him our new address, so there's no chance of meeting again. Now, Sean and I live peaceful days together. Watching him grow every day, he's become very dependable, giving me much relief.
Mom, I'll make dinner tonight.
Really? You can cook?
I learned in home economics at school, so yeah, I got this.
Alright, I'll let you take over.
I'll make the best meatloaf.
Someday the time will come when Sean and I part ways. Until then, I plan to cherish every moment of our life together. When I went over to my best friend's house with my little daughter, we heard some obscene voices echoing in the hallway of the apartment building in broad daylight.
Oh, I hear Daddy's voice. A girl's voice, too.
My daughter innocently uttered, "What?" I strained my ears and froze on the spot. Occasionally, mixed with my best friend's voice was a man's voice. It certainly sounded like my husband's. I switched on the video recording mode on my phone and approached the door. Then I heard a conversation between the two of them, clearly indicating they were having an affair. I lost it at that moment. I couldn't believe my best friend and my husband were cheating on me. I vowed to bring judgment upon them on the day of reckoning. I forcefully swung open the door. What followed next was the betrayers getting a good taste of hell. I'm Melissa, a 36-year-old working mother of a 5-year-old girl. I have a best friend, Jocelyn, who played a significant role in introducing me to my husband. We've been friends since we were kids, living in the same neighborhood and attending the same primary school. While I excelled in academics, I was rather introverted and didn't stand out much. On the other hand, Jocelyn, with her exceptional looks and outgoing personality, pulled me into social circles. In return, I helped her with her studies, even though it wasn't her strong suit. We built a mutually supportive relationship despite our differences in personality. Our bond continued into adulthood. I graduated from a well-known university and landed a job in a big corporation while she worked as a receptionist at an IT company. Her beauty blossomed further, and I was proud to have such a glamorous friend. She had been dating various guys since high school, while I had parted ways with a guy I dated in university and hadn't been in a relationship for a few years. It was then that she suggested,
"It's time you found a boyfriend. I'll introduce you to one of my friends. He's a good guy."
That was how I was introduced to Sean, one of her college friends, who would later become my husband. At the time, he was working as a sales for a medium-sized company. Although I earned more, I didn't mind that. He was always attentive, and I trusted Jocelyn's judgment in introducing him to me. We started dating, and eventually he popped the question. I was overjoyed, and we got engaged. Around that time, Jocelyn had broken up with her boyfriend of about a year.
"He was hot, but being just an ordinary employee at a regular company wasn't for me. I deserve someone more smart and capable,"
she commented disdainfully, and I chuckled at her remarks. Eventually, the day of my wedding arrived. I was ecstatic in my wedding dress, surrounded by happiness. Jocelyn was, of course, my maid of honor and gave a heartwarming speech. In the middle of the reception, she leaned over to me and whispered,
"Hey, Melissa, that guy sitting over there is totally my type." "Who is he?"
"Oh yeah, that's my cousin Keith. He's 4 years older than us."
"Ooh, nice. What does he do for work? Does he have a girlfriend?"
She was all excited and asked me all sorts of questions, then she headed over to chat with him after dinner. Keith was my mom's older sister's son. He had a great job, and he was good looking and all, so he was my proud cousin. We had been close since we were little, and I admired him as my brother. From afar, Jocelyn and Keith seemed to be enjoying each other's company. I watched them with a happy heart. After that, Sean and I moved into a rented apartment together, but you know what I found out after getting married? He didn't do any housework. I was just dumbfounded by the way he brushed it off, saying, "It's a woman's job," no matter how many times I told him. 3 months after the wedding, I went out for dinner with Jocelyn.
"So, how's married life treating you? Fun?"
For a split second, I thought about complaining to her about Sean not doing housework. But I didn't want her to feel responsible for introducing him to me, so I just lied. We're getting along just fine. I'm happy.
Aw, that's good then. Well, listen, Melissa, I've got some news today. I'm with Keith now.
Whoa, Keith? Really? Yay! I genuinely felt happy that my proud cousin and my best friend had gotten together.
We are seeing each other with marriage in mind. It won't be long before I can make a happy announcement, I hope.
I'd be so happy if my favorite two people got married. We clinked our wine glasses and chatted away into the night. Then 6 months later, I found out I was pregnant. After the morning sickness settled down, I received a message from Jocelyn saying she and Keith were engaged.
I owe it all to you for introducing me to him. Thank you so much.
What are you talking about? You introduced me to Sean too. I really wish you a lifetime of happiness. If it's him, everything will be fine. And so they had a beautiful wedding and tied the knot. A while later, Keith said with a coy smile, I never imagined I'd end up marrying your best friend. Let's hang out as couples from now on. I happily agreed. After that, Sean and I, along with Keith and Jocelyn, met up regularly. couldn't drink because I was pregnant, but it was like a fun double date. Eventually, I gave birth. It was a girl, and we named her Emma. I was ecstatic when Keith and Jocelyn gave us a splendid gift for the birth. After being discharged from the hospital, Sean, who had taken a leave of absence from work, and I started taking care of Emma. But he hardly did any childcare. He'd pick her up whimsically, but as soon as her diaper got wet or she got hungry and started crying, he'd just hand her over to me. Maybe she's hungry. Make some milk for her.
No way. I don't know how to do it. You should.
I've told you how to do it so many times. Fine, then can you do the laundry for me instead?
Ugh, that's a hassle. No way. I'm gonna go out for a bit.
Instead of trying to learn how to take care of our child or even do housework, he just kept neglecting everything. I was exhausted from giving birth and sleep-deprived from breastfeeding. While I was busy with chores and taking care of the baby, he just lounged around at home, glued to his phone. Sometimes he just casually went out and didn't come back all day. I was annoyed, wondering what the point was of him taking a leave. But I was too busy with childcare and didn't have time to worry about teaching him, and complained about him when Jocelyn called me. I didn't even have the luxury of considering her debt of gratitude for introducing him to me anymore.
Jeez, he's terrible. It's supposed to be a team effort,
she said sympathetically. By the way, are you thinking about having a baby soon? Keith would be a great dad.
Yeah, someday. I want to enjoy being a graceful housewife a bit longer.
Since I couldn't interfere with her decisions about having children, I just went along. Even after Emma was born, I kept having phone conversations with her and occasionally invited her and Keith over for dinner. Keith totally doted on Emma, saying,
"You're welcome to our place anytime."
When Emma turned 2, Sean came home with a sulky face one day.
Man, I got scolded unreasonably by my boss again.
You did mention you guys didn't get along well. Are you okay?
Of course not. I was so fed up that I handed in my resignation on the spot.
What? I was flabbergasted. Even though I was back at work, there would be more expenses with Emma, and yet he decided to quit his job without consulting me.
Don't worry about it. We'll manage with your income for a while. I also want to relax while I get unemployment benefits. So, I'm counting on you.
And just like that, he suddenly became unemployed. I wanted to leave the housework and childcare to him since he was at home, but all he did was drive Emma to and from daycare. He left all the housework for me to do after coming home from work. Since he was out during the day, I thought he was seriously looking for a job, but he couldn't find one, and eventually his unemployment benefits ran out. In the end, he got a new job through connections, but by then my feelings for him cooled down. 3 years have passed since then, and I'm still working while caring for Emma and doing all the housework. On the other hand, Sean claims to be busy with work and spends more and more time away from home. Still, I remember his period of unemployment and think that at least he has a job now, so I keep quiet. I've been meeting up with Jocelyn and Keith as before. Even though they haven't had a baby yet, they seem happy together, and there's no reason for me to meddle. One Saturday, Sean is supposedly called to the office and leaves early in the morning. Recently, my mom came over with a bunch of dried fruits and whatnot from Trader Joe's. There's too much for us to consume at home, so I want to share some with Jocelyn, but she's not picking up her phone or reading my messages. I ask Emma, "Want to go visit Aunt Jocelyn? If she's not home, we can stop by the nearby park."
Okay, I want to go.
So I get ready and head out to her apartment with Emma. Even if she isn't there now, maybe she'll call me while we're at the park. We arrive hand in hand, and I let Emma press the code to open the entrance door. As we walk down the hallway of the apartment building, I faintly hear voices. When we get to Jocelyn's door, I notice voices coming from inside.
Oh, I hear Daddy's voice. A girl's voice, too.
Emma innocently utters. What? I froze in shock, straining to listen. Emma, wait by the elevator for a bit. Don't go anywhere. She says,
Okay.
and moves away from me. I turn on the video recording mode on my phone and approach the door. Then I hear a conversation between the two people, clearly indicating they're having an affair. I'm livid when I realize everything. I can't believe my best friend and my husband are cheating on me. I won't forgive them. I'll drag them to hell. I forcefully open the door and let myself inside. There in the living room are Sean and Jocelyn. They're startled by my sudden appearance. They immediately move away from each other, but it's all too late. Sean, trying to cover his nakedness, asks,
Oh, what the heck are you doing here?
I came to see Jocelyn, but what the heck are you two doing? He shrinks back as I glare at them with bloodshot eyes.
Oh, well, we're busted.
Jocelyn brazenly utters without a hint of shame. I turn to face her. Jocelyn, what the heck are you thinking? You're married to Keith, and yet you're messing around with my husband. Since when?
College, but we were just friends after we started working. But then we rekindled around the time you had Emma.
College? And yet you introduced him to me? She smirks at my question.
Yeah, I've always hated your high and mighty attitude just because you're smarter than me. That's why I handed him to you as a hand-me-down. Be grateful since you've got a daughter and all. Fine, got it. I take a moment to collect myself. I just sent the video to Keith. Their faces went pale in an instant. I would think that they expected things would turn out like this once their affair is exposed, but they suddenly seem panicked.
God darn it! What the heck are you doing? You don't need to tell him anything.
Yeah, why would you send the video to him? He's a lawyer, you know.
Right, Keith's profession is a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. He has his own law firm and employs Sean as a clerk. In other words, Keith's his big boss. He's coming soon, so behave yourselves.
Hey, stop it, let go.
Don't touch me, you idiot.
As we wrestle, the door swings open. Keith is here. He looks at the nearly naked pair and nods at me.
So, where do we start? I saw the video, Jocelyn.
No, honey, it's a misunderstanding.
You mean this?
He pushes the video on his phone screen to her, and her face turns ashen. Prompted by him, she begins to talk. She admits that in college, she had a physical relationship with Sean. She introduced him as a hand-me-down to secretly make fun of me. After both of us got married, they coincidentally ran into each other while Sean was on a leave of absence. Things got heated, and they ended up in a hotel that day. From then on, they met secretly and enjoyed the thrill behind our backs. Keith let out a deep sigh after hearing everything.
I get it. We're getting a divorce.
What? Are you serious? Listen, the only person I truly love is you.
I can't forgive you after seeing this scene. We're getting a divorce.
Wait.
Jocelyn slumps while Sean trembles beside her. Keith then turns his gaze to him.
Now it's your turn. I gave you the job, but your work is sloppy and frankly useless. It makes sense now why your previous boss was scolding you. What the? Your attitude may have been bad, but I was willing to overlook it because you're my cousin's husband. But now that you've been caught cheating with my wife, it's a different story. You're fired. Fired? Please, I beg you.
He pleads, but he's brushed off. Then he stumbles over to me and kneels on the floor.
Honey, I'm really sorry for what I've done. I apologize. Please, forgive me. I don't want to be separated from Emma. Let's go back to being a happy family.
That's when I cut him off. Don't even joke about it. There's no way I can forgive you for cheating with my best friend. We're getting a divorce too. And both of you better be prepared because we'll be seeking alimony.
Divorce? And alimony?
Jocelyn and Sean are both shocked, but Keith smiles as he informs them.
Of course, we'll be seeking alimony. And we'll make sure to collect it even if we have to take you to court. You should be grateful I didn't punch you, Sean.
They break down into tears and protest. Leaving them in their tumultuous state, I head home with Emma. A year later, the divorces of Jocelyn and Keith and Sean and me are finalized. Thanks to Keith's diligent work as a lawyer, we're able to secure alimony from both parties. Sean has taken out a loan to pay me alimony plus child support. Jocelyn, who was a housewife, asked her family to help, which was declined, and now works at a sketchy night venue to pay off her alimony. Sean, who was fired from Keith's firm, is job hunting during the day and working at a convenience store at night to repay his debt. They briefly lived together, but eventually broke up due to constant fighting. Although they sought refuge with us at one point, we firmly turned them away. I have no idea what has happened to them after that. I'm sure they're living a miserable life. I've apologized to Keith for introducing Jocelyn to him, but he comforted me, saying,
We've both been through a lot.
From now on, I'll be prioritizing the positives in my life, relishing in watching my daughter's growth. Why? Why is it so dark in here? I returned home secretly from a business trip to surprise my daughter for her birthday. I expected my daughter and husband to be celebrating together. But the house is dark and deserted. Listening closely, I hear a sobbing sound. Feeling uneasy, I quickly head to the living room. When I turn on the light, I see my daughter crying alone. But I can't find any sign of my husband. It's our daughter's birthday, so where could he possibly be, and what is he doing? I can't forgive this. I'll make sure he explains himself thoroughly. Trying to calm my trembling body with anger, I call my husband. My name is Natasha, and I'm 35 years old. I married 5 years ago, and we have a daughter, Luna, who's almost 3 years old. We named her Luna because the moon was so beautiful on the day she was born. I met my husband Dan at work in my 20s. He was a client of my company, and after seeing each other regularly, we started dating. After dating for 2 years, we got married. I returned to work 2 months after giving birth to Luna. I've always loved my job, even working up until just before my maternity leave. I often travel for work and work late. I can manage both work and childcare thanks to my husband. His company typically doesn't have overtime, so he gets home on time. So, on days when I have to work late, he picks up Luna from daycare. Today, a colleague had to leave early, so I unexpectedly had to work late. I decided to call Dan to ask him to pick up our daughter. Hey, Dan. Sorry I have to work late again today.
Got it. I'll go pick up Luna.
I'm sorry. You've already covered for me twice this week.
Don't worry about it. I can leave on time, and besides, you usually handle most of the housework and childcare.
Thanks, Dan. I really appreciate it.
We're a team, right? It's normal to help each other out. Don't worry about it. Just focus on your work.
He only recently became so cooperative. Before that, he often went out for drinks or movies after work, and wasn't very helpful. But gradually he changed, now willingly picking up Luna. Thanks to him, I can focus on my work, especially now as I'm up for a promotion. I was suddenly instructed by my boss to go on a 4-day business trip. It coincided with my daughter's birthday. Another employee had been hospitalized, so I was the replacement. If I didn't go, another colleague would have to. Although I felt guilty, I accepted my boss's request. When I got home, my daughter ran up to me saying, "Welcome back." I decided to explain the situation to her. "Luna, I have to go on a business trip for your birthday. Sorry about that."
A business trip? You have to work?
Yes, that's right. So we'll celebrate your birthday when I get back. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine. I'll celebrate with Dad on the day.
Okay then, have fun with him on your birthday. When I get back, the three of us will have a second celebration.
Yeah, so we'll need 2 cakes.
I felt a bit relieved seeing my daughter smile. I've been away on business trips often, and Luna is only 3. She must feel lonely but shows understanding beyond her ears. After putting her to bed, I talked to my husband who's watching TV with a beer. "Hey Dan, I just told Luna about it, but
Yeah, I heard. The business trip, right? I'll take good care of her, so don't worry."
Thanks. It's her birthday that day and I won't be there. Please, celebrate with her. The toy she wants is in the closet.
Got it. I'll pick up cupcakes on my way home from work. Let's buy a whole cake when you're back, and we'll all celebrate together.
Okay, let's do that. Really, sorry, and thanks for your help. As a mother and wife, I feel guilty for prioritizing work. My husband gently strokes my head as I look apologetic.
Don't worry about it. Our current life is possible because of the money you bring in.
Well, that's not really...
It's true. You earn almost double what I do.
That's just because I work overtime.
But it's not pointless overtime. You're recognized for your skills. That's why you earn that salary. You contribute more to the household expenses. I'm really grateful for that.
Indeed, our income disparity is significant. I earn about double what he does and cover 80% of our living expenses. But it's not something I do because I'm told. It's my way of showing gratitude to my supportive husband. With a husband who understands and cooperates with my job, and a daughter, they are my emotional support. A few days later, I leave for the 4-day business trip. Luna waves goodbye with a tearful smile. The trip was supposed to end tomorrow, but I finished early and can return home a day sooner. Today is Luna's birthday. I decide to come home unannounced for a surprise. I wonder how she will react. Will she be surprised or happy? Thinking it's a special celebration, I decide to buy a fancy whole cake. After getting off the plane, I buy her favorite cake from a highly rated store and head home with a spring in my step. But then I feel something off as I approach our front door. Wait, did our house look this dark from outside? Even with the curtains closed, it shouldn't be this dark. Puzzled, I unlock the door, but find no lights on inside. Why? Why is it pitch black? There's no sign of anyone around, and no sound. Maybe my husband and daughter went out somewhere. I'm about to call my husband when I hear a faint crying sound from deeper inside. Instantly, my heart races and I break out in a cold sweat. I rush to the living room and hastily turn on the light, finding my daughter curled up there. Luna, sweetie, what's wrong? Why are you alone?
Mommy! Mommy!
It's okay, sweetheart. I'm here now.
I was scared because it was so dark. Daddy usually leaves the lights on for me.
Usually? Sweetie, this isn't your first time staying home alone like this? Responding to my question, she slowly shook her head and revealed a shocking truth.
When you work late, I always sleep alone.
Alone?
Yeah, Daddy says Mommy's working hard, so we have to be good and not bother her. So that's why.
Aw, honey. It's all okay now, honey. You must have been lonely. I'm sorry for always making you feel that way.
Mommy!
I hugged my crying daughter tightly, and she hugged me back with strength. She must have felt quite lonely all this time. Her embrace was stronger than that of an adult. While I felt sorry for her, anger towards my husband began to rise. Where could he be, and what is he doing in such a situation? And what she said concerned me. If I believe her story, it means that every time I worked late, my husband put her to bed and then left somewhere. He would return around 10 p.m. when I came home from overtime, pretending as if he had been home all evening. Why? For what reason? There was only one answer that came to mind. He might be cheating on me. To uncover the truth, I decided to call him. He didn't know that I was already home. This could be the perfect opportunity to expose his lies. On the 4th call, he finally answered, and I immediately asked him, Dan, it's me.
Oh, hey, Natasha. How was your business trip? You're coming back tomorrow, right?
Yeah. Today is Luna's birthday. Where are you right now?
Right now? I'm at my parents' house, yeah. At my parents' house.
At your parents' house? As I repeated his words, he lied calmly without knowing that his lie had been exposed.
Yeah, we're having a birthday party for Luna with my parents right now.
With your parents?
Exactly. Since you're not here, we decided to celebrate with just the 4 of us.
I see. That's good. Luna won't feel lonely with your mom and dad there.
Right? It's important to think about her feelings. She might be sad without you, but we wanted her to enjoy her birthday. When you get back, let's celebrate together.
At that moment, a wave of fury surged within me. Caring about her feelings? The nerve! Leaving our daughter alone in the dark and lying about it. Unforgivable. After ending the call with my husband, I took Luna's hand and headed to my in-laws' house. 30 minutes later, we arrived at their place. My mother-in-law was surprised to see us. Natasha, Luna, what brings you here at this time? Sorry for visiting so late at night. I need to talk about something. Is your husband here?
He's here, but come in first. It's cold outside.
Thank you. She seemed like she wanted to say something but held back for Luna's sake. I put a sleepy Luna to bed in the guest room. Sitting down in front of my in-laws, I began the conversation. Do you know what day it is today? As my father-in-law looked puzzled, my mother-in-law said,
It's Luna's birthday, isn't it?
That's right. Today is her birthday. Did Dan mention anything to you?
Nothing at all. I contacted him yesterday wanting to give Luna a present, but he said they'd be spending tomorrow as a family of 3.
So there was no plan to celebrate her birthday here today?
Of course not. I wanted to join the celebration, but he refused.
Seeing their saddened faces, I briefly explained the situation. I told them that I was supposed to be on a business trip until tomorrow, and that I came home early and found Luna crying alone in a dark room, and that my husband lied about having a birthday party at his parents' house. After hearing everything, they seemed shocked. I just can't forgive him. The worst case, I'm considering a divorce. Leaving our daughter alone in a dark room like that. They nodded in agreement.
It's understandable you feel that way. It's all Dan's fault. This is unforgivable. To do this to such a wonderful wife and daughter.
I'm going to call him here now. Is that okay? My father-in-law then said,
I'll call him,
and took out his phone. He called my husband and told him to come home immediately. An hour later, my husband appeared at the door, his face showing he realized something was wrong. Upon seeing me, he turned even paler.
Natasha, why are you here?
Where have you been? I confronted him. There was no birthday party for Luna at your parents' house. Was there?
And
it's not just today, right?
What?
You've left our daughter alone at home many times, haven't you? She told me herself crying.
Ugh.
I already know you're hiding something. Just come clean already. My anger made me raise my voice, surprising him. He hesitantly began to speak, shocked by my usually unseen demeanor. According to my husband, he had been having an affair for about a year. His late nights out for drinks or movies were excuses to meet his affair partner. But he realized that continuing like this would eventually raise suspicions. So he pretended to be cooperative with me while secretly continuing his affair. Lately, he instructed Luna to sleep alone while he was with his mistress during my overtime hours. After hearing everything, my in-laws were fuming with rage, their faces red. I was so flabbergasted that I was speechless. After finishing his explanation, my husband bowed his head, crying, and begged me.
Natasha, I'm sorry. I really am. I won't do anything like this again. Please, forgive me. I'm begging you. I don't want to divorce and ruin our family. It was just a moment of weakness.
A moment of weakness? Cut the crap. How much do you have to hurt people?
I never intended to destroy our family. That's why I was actively doing pickups and drop-offs for Luna, right?
Even now, he thinks his actions can be forgiven. Does he think an apology will somehow make things right? But I had no such intention. I mercilessly responded to him, still bowing his head in front of me. Thinking childcare involvement would fix everything is a big mistake. It's not just about me. You betrayed your own daughter. And you think such a half-hearted apology is enough? Don't make me laugh. There's no way I can forgive you. What you did to your daughter is unforgivable. Worse than neglect.
But I'm apologizing so much. I don't want a divorce. Please, don't take my daughter away from me.
What value do you think your apology has? Leaving your daughter alone on her birthday to meet your mistress? You're no longer a husband or a father. I will never forgive you. Stay out of our lives forever. After my forceful words, he collapsed on the floor in despair. My father-in-law then escorted him out and shut the front door firmly. Thus, my husband was effectively banned from my in-laws' house. Afterward, I consulted with a friend and was referred to a lawyer. It took some time, but I was able to demand a substantial alimony from him and his mistress. Additionally, he was now obligated to pay child support. With his already meager income, his life would undoubtedly become more challenging. His mistress, upon learning the truth, quickly became disillusioned and broke up with him. Thus, he lost not only his wife and child, but also his mistress. However, I had no sympathy for him. He should reflect on his actions and live a life filled with regret. As for me, I moved to an apartment near my work and started living with my daughter. My daughter, having been scared by her father, didn't hold a good impression of him and didn't seem to miss him much. She adapted flexibly to our new life.
Mommy, your birthday is coming up soon, isn't it?
That's right, but I don't really need to celebrate anymore.
We're not going to celebrate? We should buy a big cake and sing happy birthday.
All right. Let's buy your favorite strawberry cake.
Really? Yay, I love you, Mommy.
Determined, I resolved to make my daughter happy no matter what. I planned to shower her with all the love and affection she could ever need, enough for both her father and me. Troy grabbed the blocks our daughter was playing with and threw them hard into the trash can.
All this stuff is just junk. I'm throwing them out right now.
Hey, that's kind of mean. What are you doing?
We don't need toys.
My husband kept imposing his irrational beliefs and acting selfishly. I had reached my limit with him. As our daughter cried, I made a firm vow in my heart. This is unforgivable. How can he do this to his own family? I'll get back at him. Thus, the countdown to our family's collapse began. My name is Molly, 30 years old. I live with my husband Troy, who's the same age, and our daughter Lisa. I work as a freelance web designer. I usually work from home, so I have a peaceful life while Lisa is at kindergarten. Lisa just turned 3 recently. She's started talking a lot, and is really into typical girls' games like playing house and dolls. It feels like she was just born, but she's growing up so fast. Every day is a whirlwind. Watching her learn everything is incredibly rewarding as a mother. One day, while preparing dinner, my husband came home from work and handed me a book.
Molly, check this out.
Uh-huh, what's this? The Essence of Minimalism?
Minimalism's all the rage these days. You've heard of it, right?
Well, I've heard of it, yeah, but I don't know much about it.
That's why you should read it. It'll really change your world.
He looked so refreshed, and there was a sparkle in his eyes. While Troy and Lisa were in the bath, I decided to skim through the book. It explained what it means to be a minimalist. Let's see what it says. A minimalist is someone who lives with the bare essentials, or that kind of lifestyle. It's becoming popular worldwide. I'd heard the term minimalist before, but didn't know what it really meant. Reading the book he gave me was enlightening. The points made sense. It's better to not buy anything beyond what's really necessary. Practicing minimalism could save some money, but the idea that it could change the world seemed a bit much. I skimmed the book and went back to my chores. I thought it was just another way of thinking as I dressed Lisa after her bath, but I had no idea at the time. I didn't realize this book would lead to a tragedy in our family. A week later on a Saturday, Troy was off work. While having breakfast, I asked Lisa what she wanted to do today. She excitedly said,
I want to go out with Mommy and Daddy.
Go out? How about the shopping mall?
Really? I want to see clothes and, dolls too.
Sure, let's go. We haven't been out much lately.
I'm so happy we can go out. You're happy too, right, Daddy?
She said this with a big smile, looking at Troy. Then he reacted abruptly and quickly said,
Sorry, Lisa. Daddy has things to do today.
Why? I wanted to go out with both you and Mommy.
I'm sorry. I'm busy today. So you two go without me.
Busy with work? Even on a Saturday?
Yeah, that's right. Daddy's really busy with work.
Okay then. I'll go with Mommy.
She seemed to accept it easily, but I was puzzled. Busy? Work? That couldn't be right. He hadn't mentioned work at all. While she was brushing her teeth after breakfast, I quietly asked him, Hey, what's going on? You don't really have work today, do you? He smirked and proudly said,
This is my work. Today, as a minimalist, I'm cleaning the house.
What? Minimalist?
Yeah, remember the book I gave you? After reading it, I just couldn't wait to organize the house. I've been restless about it all week.
Wait, so you mean you turned down Lisa's invitation just to tidy up?
Of course. I can't go out. I need to clean up this house as soon as possible.
I don't think our house is that messy. Our home wasn't exactly lacking in items, but it wasn't cluttered with unnecessary things either. I think it's quite organized. I hate clutter, so I always do at least a minimal clean every day. Yet he seemed dissatisfied. Ignoring me, he said in an irritated tone,
You just don't get it. Just because it's organized doesn't mean it's clean.
What do you mean?
Get rid of everything but the essentials. Make the house more spacious. That's what true cleanliness is.
But it's not like we have unnecessary stuff.
Well, you might not understand yet. Anyway, I'll take care of the house today. You go out with Lisa.
Ah, okay.
Stay out as long as you can.
Got it. So Lisa and I ended up going to the mall. I didn't understand why he was so passionate, but if he wanted to clean, that was fine by me. I was pretty casual about it. Later, Lisa and I enjoyed our time at the mall. We even bought a cake to thank Troy for tidying up. When we got home, the scene before us made the cake box slip from my hands. We're back! What? What is this? The house looked entirely different from when we left. The TV, decorations, Lisa's child-sized chair, all gone. And that wasn't all. Even the kitchen toaster and the dishes in the cabinet had mostly disappeared. I was speechless at the unbelievable sight. I couldn't understand why everything was like this. Troy, unconcerned by my shock, greeted us with a beaming smile. Lisa, speaking for me, said,
Daddy, the TV's gone. What about my bunny chair?
Lisa, we don't need a TV anymore. That chair isn't necessary either, right?
Why? I like that bunny chair. I sit on it to watch TV.
You don't need to watch TV. Study with your mom instead.
No! That's mean, Daddy. Why are you hiding my favorite things?
You might not understand yet. You'll get it eventually.
She was so upset about her favorite chair being thrown out that she started crying loudly. I snapped back to reality and confronted my husband. What's going on here?
I told you, I threw out the TV. We can live without it, right?
But why throw it away? My parents bought us that TV as a wedding gift.
TVs aren't good for Lisa's education. They take up space. As a minimalist, I decided we don't need it.
What? I froze, and he continued proudly.
Yeah, I threw out the toaster and oven too. We can manage with boiling, frying, and steaming.
What are you talking about?
Also, I threw out your computer and tablet from the living room. They were taking up too much space.
I use them for my work. How am I supposed to work without my computer and tablet? Lisa's expenses are only going to increase.
If we practice minimalism, we'll naturally save money.
That's ridiculous.
I also threw out some of Lisa's stuffed animals and a few of your shoes from the bedroom.
Lisa began to cry even more. He even threw out her favorite sandals. I was beyond anger at his incomprehensible actions. I could only watch her cry. That night, I went to bed with Lisa, who was still sobbing. The next morning, while making breakfast, I waited for my husband to wake up. I won't forgive him for throwing things away without permission. How dare he dispose of our belongings without asking? Yesterday was hard for Lisa, so I have to talk to him today. She seemed a bit better, playing with her favorite blocks while I cooked. Then, looking groggy, my husband entered the living room. I approached him and said, "Listen." His demeanor changed instantly.
Hey, where did you hide those?
He pointed out Lisa's blocks, turning red with anger. She trembled, already on the verge of tears. Troy snatched her blocks and shoved them into the trash.
All this stuff is just junk. I'm throwing it out right now.
Hey, that's kind of mean. What are you doing?
We don't need toys. Haven't you read it yet?
He thrust the essence of minimalism in front of me. He lectured.
See? It says here. Get rid of unnecessary things immediately.
So what? Are you saying Lisa's toys are unnecessary?
Obviously. You always buy unnecessary stuff. Toys just take up space. You two don't understand anything.
Wait a minute. That's too much. It's one thing to throw out your own stuff, but don't throw away mine and Lisa's without asking.
What? I'm doing this for the sake of our home.
She started crying again as he yelled in anger. My heart felt like it was being crushed by her crying. I had never seen him like this before. I was frozen in place at the bizarre scene. He looked at me with a smug smile.
Listen, you two don't understand what minimalism is. That's why I'm showing you by example.
We never asked for this.
Shut up. I'm the head of this house. You two just need to listen and follow.
At that moment, something inside me snapped. Just listen and follow? Don't be ridiculous. What do you think Lisa and I are? We have our own will. We're not just convenient housemates. I had reached my limit with my husband's nonsensical arguments. But I couldn't raise my voice in front of our daughter. Holding back the anger welling up inside me, I told him calmly, I'm sorry, but I can't live with you anymore.
What are you talking about?
I'm going to my parents' house with Lisa for now. We'll talk more about this later.
Hey.
Ignoring his attempt to stop me, I packed our bags, picked up Lisa, and drove to my parents' house. After explaining everything, my parents were furious, as expected. Even if we were to divorce, him throwing away so much was too one-sided. It was too unfair to end things this way. So I consulted a lawyer to see what could be done. As a result, I found one way to get back at my husband. The following week, after leaving Lisa with my parents, I went back to the house where my husband was waiting. With the lawyer's help, I had prepared my revenge to the fullest extent possible. It was Sunday, so when I rang the doorbell, Troy came out immediately. He looked grumpy and snapped at me.
You left the house for a whole week. Do you even have any sense of responsibility as a wife?
That's not important right now. I have something serious to discuss.
Serious talk? Just so you know, I have no intention of changing my lifestyle.
Good. I'm glad to hear you say that.
What do you mean?
I cut him off and handed him a memo. When he saw it, his eyes widened and he glared at me. This list contains all the items you threw away on your own.
So what?
You need to pay for them.
Huh?
After consulting with a lawyer, I learned your actions constitute property damage. He stared at the memo in shock.
This can't be.
I relentlessly continued. The list includes things I bought myself or were given to me. It doesn't include anything we bought together.
A computer? TV? Tablet? You're saying I have to compensate for all these?
Of course. Oh, and also Lisa's toys. I bought all of them. Plus, the toaster and oven were gifts from relatives for our wedding.
You've got to be kidding. I did all this as a minimalist for your sake.
I slammed the table as he started to preach his beliefs again. The sound made him stop mid-sentence. I raised my voice at him. Kidding? That's what I should be asking you. Do you have any idea how much trouble you've caused us? What you did was a terrible act, completely disregarding our feelings. Throwing away someone's belongings without permission, are you out of your mind? I refuse to be a family with someone like that.
Wait, are you saying you want a divorce?
Yes, that's right. I'm divorcing you. I came here today to tell you that. I don't want to be with someone who can do such things, and I don't want you as Lisa's father. I'll make sure you pay for everything you threw away.
This can't be happening. Divorce is too much. This was all for you.
You did this to yourself. If you can't understand that, then rot in hell alone, you jerk. I slammed the list of items to be compensated on the table and stormed out of the house. On the way back to my parents' house, I deleted his contact information and completely cut off our relationship. Later, I initiated divorce proceedings through my lawyer. He was reluctant to agree, and even showed up at my parents' house, causing a scene, insisting he wasn't in the wrong. Enraged by his behavior, my father called the police. Troy was taken away by the police, and the incident reached my in-laws. As a result, they found out about all his misdeeds and apparently disowned him. He had no choice but to agree to the divorce. When you refuse the divorce, it'll go to mediation, I threatened, and he reluctantly consented. Now I'm back to being single and receive a fixed amount monthly for compensation. Plus, there's child support, so he'll have a tough time for a while. That's the price for his extreme minimalism. Let him suffer. As for me, I'm happily living with my daughter at my parents' house, receiving their support. I had planned to start a new life with just Lisa and me, but my parents are happy to live with their granddaughter, so I've decided to stay with them for a while. Lisa, I'm sorry. We can't live with your father anymore. She shook her head vigorously in response to my apology. Holding my hand and looking into my eyes, she said,
Mom, I'm okay as long as I have you. I hate a dad who does mean things.
Thank you.
Plus, we have Grandpa and Grandma, so I'm not lonely at all.
Saying that, she hugged me tightly. I hugged her back and vowed to protect her for the rest of my life.